Puerto Rico has lost power after deadly Hurricane Maria swept through the island on Wednesday, with winds that blew the roofs off homes and flash floods that turned roads into rivers, leaving at least 9 people dead in its wake across the Caribbean. Hurricane Maria blew ashore in the morning in the southeast coastal town of Yabucoa as a Category 4 storm with winds of 155 miles per hour. While the eye of the storm has since moved off the island and weakened to a Category 2 hurricane, it's expected to continue lashing the island of 3.4 million with life-threatening winds, storm surge and rain through this evening. Once we're able to go outside, we're going to find our island destroyed, said Abner Gomez, Puerto Rico's emergency management director. The information we have received is not encouraging. It's a system that has destroyed everything in its path. As people waited it out in shelters or took cover inside stairwells, bathrooms and closets, Maria, the strongest storm to hit the island since the Great Depression, brought down cell towers and power lines, snapped trees and unloaded at least 20 inches of rain. Widespread flooding was reported, with dozens of cars half-submerged in some neighborhoods and many streets turned into rivers. People calling local radio stations reported that doors were being torn off their hinges and a water tank flew away. Even before the storm, Puerto Rico's electrical grid was crumbling and the island was in dire condition financially. Puerto Rico is struggling to restructure a portion of its $73 billion debt, and the government has warned it is running out of money as it fights back against furloughs and other austerity measures imposed by a federal board overseeing the island's finances. Gov. Ricardo Rossello urged people to have faith. "We are stronger than any hurricane. Together, we will rebuild." He later asked President Donald Trump to declare the island a disaster zone, a step that would open the way to federal aid. Many feared extended power outages would further sink businesses struggling amid a recession that has lasted more than a decade. "This is going to be a disaster," said Jean-Robert Auguste, who owns 2 French restaurants and sought shelter at a San Juan hotel. "We haven't made any money this month." AccuWeather estimated that Maria could reduce the GDP in Puerto Rico $101.3 billion by 10% by causing an estimated $10 billion. The estimate also takes into account devastation to crops and a drop in tourism. More than 11,000 people, and more than 580 pets, waited out the storms in shelters across the island. Along the island's northern coast, an emergency medical station in the town of Arecibo lost its roof, while communication was severed with several emergency management posts. A hospital and a police station reported broken windows, and a tree fell on an ambulance. The heavy winds and rain and the noise of things crashing outside woke many across Puerto Rico before daybreak. At one recently built hotel in San Juan, water dripped through the ceiling of a 6th-floor room and seeped through the window. "I didn't sleep at all," said Marek Mai, a vacationing 35-year-old flight attendant from Estonia. Mike Thies, a National Geographic photographer who was waiting out the storm in a hotel in San Juan, told CNN that the winds sound like a woman screaming at the top of her lungs. Felix Delgado, mayor of the northern coastal city of Catano, said that 80% of the 454 homes in the neighborhood known as Juan Amados were destroyed. The fishing community on San Juan Bay was hit with a storm surge of more than 4 feet. He said, "Months and months and months and months are going to pass before we can recover from this," he said. As of 5 p.m. ET, the eye of the storm was centered about 22 miles off the northwestern corner of Puerto Rico, clocking sustained winds of 110 miles per hour and moving northwest at 12 miles per hour. It was expected to pass off the coast of the Dominican Republic late Wednesday and Thursday. Heather Nauert, a Department of State spokesperson, issued a statement about the powerful storm on Wednesday afternoon. "The United States stands in solidarity with the people of Dominica and all those across the Caribbean region affected by the devastating impact of Hurricane Maria," the statement reads. "The United States stands ready to work with you and our international partners to provide immediate disaster relief. We are in the process of coordinating the best possible package of assistance. The recent natural disasters underscore our interconnectedness and the importance of strong partnership with the Caribbean. The Department of State has an ongoing task force working to determine the extent of the damages, to coordinate evacuation efforts, and to provide assistance to U.S. citizens in the affected countries. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of the Caribbean region. Previously a Category 5 storm with 175 miles per hour winds, Maria hit Puerto Rico as the third strongest storm to make landfall in the U.S., based on a key measurement that meteorologists use, air pressure. The lower the central pressure, the stronger a storm. Maria's pressure was 917 millibars, lower than Hurricane Irma's 929 millibars when it roared into the Florida Keys earlier this month. Irma sideswiped Puerto Rico on September 6, causing no deaths or widespread damage on the island but leaving more than 1 million people without electricity. More than 70,000 still had no power as Maria approached. As the hurricane approached Wednesday morning, the National Weather Service issued a warning, saying Maria's winds could cause catastrophic damage and life-threatening rainfall, with flooding having possible devastating impacts. It is possible that parts of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands may become uninhabitable for weeks or longer due to the destruction that Maria will cause, Meyer said. Hurricanes tend to veer north or south of the island. The last Category 4 hurricane to blow ashore in Puerto Rico was in 1932, and the strongest ever to hit the island was San Felipe in 1928 with winds of 160 miles per hour. Before Hurricanes Irma and Maria, just 4 other Category 4 hurricanes tracked within 75 miles of central Puerto Rico in historical records that back to the late 19th century. As Maria approached, U.S. President Donald Trump offered his support via Twitter, Puerto Rico being hit hard by new monster hurricane. Be careful, our hearts are with you, will be there to help. As the storm closed in on the Dominican Republic, about 4,000 tourists in the Bavara Punta Cana area on the eastern tip of the island were moved to hotels in Santo Domingo, the capital. The Dominican Republic will likely start to feel the effects of the hurricane Wednesday night, especially on the north coast of the island. Those effects should last through Thursday morning. It's still unclear if the storm will scrape the island or remain off the coast. Residents in the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos are being urged to finish their hurricane preparations as soon as possible, as conditions will begin to deteriorate there starting Thursday morning. Hurricane conditions are expected to start late Thursday in Turks and Caicos. Right now, it's still too early to tell if the storm will hit the U.S. mainland. Experts at weather.com explain that the storm's direction will depend on a complicated upper-level pattern including a weakening Jose, a building upper-level high-pressure system, then an arriving southward plunge of the jet stream into the east. However, the current cone of possibilities includes a potential landfall in the Carolinas. Conditions on the U.S. Virgin Islands will improve Wednesday, after being scraped by the eye of the storm overnight. The storm's center passed near Overstreet Croix overnight Tuesday, prompting U.S. Virgin Islands Gov. Kenneth Mapp to insist that people remain alert. Street Croix was largely spared the widespread damage caused by Hurricane Irma on the Chains Street, Thomas and Street, John Islands just 2 weeks ago. But this time, the island would experience 5 hours of hurricane-force winds, Mapp said. For folks in their homes, I really recommend that you not be in any kind of sleepwear, he said during a brief news conference. Make sure you have your shoes on. Make sure you have a jacket around, something for your head in case your roof should breach. I don't really recommend you be sleeping from 11 o'clock to 4 a.m. Be aware of what's going on around you. Nicole Tyson, a spokeswoman at the U.S. Virgin Islands Emergency Operations Center, said Wednesday that there were no immediate reports of deaths or injuries on Street Croix, but that it was still too dangerous Wednesday to venture out and conduct a thorough check. Maria has killed 9 people so far, 7 on the island of Dominica and 2 on the island of Guadeloupe. No details were released about the fatalities on Dominica, but one of the people who died on Guadeloupe was killed by a falling tree on Tuesday, after refusing to heed orders to stay indoors. 2 others aboard a boat were reported missing off La Desirade Island, just east of Guadeloupe, officials said. About 40% of the island of Guadeloupe, 80,000 homes, were without power and flooding was reported in several communities. The storm made its first landfall on the tiny eastern Caribbean island of Dominica late Monday, where Prime Minister Roosevelt scared sent out a series of dramatic posts on his Facebook page, including that his own roof had blown away. The winds are merciless. We shall survive by the grace of God, Scarrett wrote before communications went down. The storm knocked out communications for the entire island, leaving anyone outside Dominica struggling to determine the extent of damage. Though it was clearly widespread, the situation is really grave, Consul General Barbara Daly said in a telephone interview from New York. She said she lost contact with the island about 4 a.m. At that point, officials had learned that 70% of homes had lost their roofs, including her own. Hartley Henry, an advisor to Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarrett, said in a statement on Wednesday that the island country is in a daze with no electricity and little to no communications. He said there has been tremendous loss of housing and public buildings in the mountainous island, but the full extent of the damage isn't known. Flooding was a big concern, given the island's steep mountains, cut through with rivers that rage even after a heavy rain. Dominica was still recovering from Tropical Storm Erika, which killed 30 people and destroyed more than 370 homes in August 2015. Forecasters said the storm surge from Maria could raise water levels by 6 to 9 feet near the storm's center. The storm was predicted to bring 10 to 15 inches of rain across the islands, with more in isolated areas. To the north, Tropical Storm Jose's outer rain bands are approaching southern New England's coast. The Hurricane Center says dangerous surf and rip currents will affect much of the U.S. East Coast for days, but the storm was unlikely to make landfall. Jose, a former hurricane, was about 140 miles south-southeast of Nantucket, Massachusetts, with top sustained winds of 70 miles per hour. Big waves caused by Jose swept 5 people off a coastal jetty in Rhode Island and they were hospitalized after being rescued. A tropical storm warning was posted for coastal areas in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, and tropical storm watches were up for parts of New York's Long Island and Connecticut.